Hi, my name is Justin. I'm a mentor here at LEADucation, and this is day 2 of the Intro to Tableau Public course, which I will be leading. We'll start today by learning how to import data into Tableau, and then preparing your data, opening a sheet, then an introduction to the workspace, and then finally putting data into the workspace so you can start visualizing it. This is what Tableau looks like when you first open it up. On the left here, you have ways to connect your data file. So at the very top is Excel. You have a text file, PDF. If you click on more, you have Google Sheets up there. And Tableau Desktop fills this whole screen with ways to connect data. But I have personally never heard of any of them, and I don't think they will be very useful, especially in this course, but even if you're just messing around outside of this course. But if you decide to get into the more advanced side of Tableau, then you might be using data files that are from one of those more complex sources. In the middle here, we have this big open area where you can pin recent vises, or it'll also just show some recent vises. And I don't have any right now, but I do have the one I'm about to show you in just a minute. So on the right here, we have some how-to videos, the viz of the day, which today is about NASCAR, and then at the bottom here, some resources that they have on their website. So we'll start by opening our data source. So I'm going to use an Excel file, and I'm going to use the driving log that I had to keep for when I was getting my permit when I was 15. So this is the data source page. So on the left here, there's just some information about the source. Up here, this is called the canvas, and this is where you can connect multiple data sources. So if I wanted to connect permit hours and license hours and any other sort of hours or whatever, I could connect those. Or if I wanted to connect the permit hours of multiple different people and compare them, but they were in separate spreadsheets and separate documents that they had all emailed to me, then I could just connect them up here. But we're not going to do that today. And then down here is the data field where you can see all your data laid out in the table as it appears in the spreadsheet. So you can see here, I have all my dates and the driving times and the skills, and it aggregates it all very nicely if you click on this button, and it even categorizes the information automatically. So you can see here it automatically recognizes it as a date. These are numbers, text, and then, these are just random things. So we're going to start here. We're going to click on this orange button, go to Worksheet, Sheet 1, and it'll open up. And this is what the Tableau workspace looks like. And also down here, you can toggle between different sheets and dashboards and stories, but we're not going to focus on that now. That'll be much later. This is about the workspace. So on the left here, you have your data information and data fields. So it's those top header things that we were seeing earlier: adult initials, date, driving environment, and it's again categorized in those same ways with the numbers and the dates and the text. These are called cards, so you can apply filters, or you can sort things by color or by size or add text. Lots of different things. You can change the type of graph you want, but that'll be for next time. This here is called the view, and this is where you actually get to see your data represented in a graph. Up here, these are called shelves, and this is where you can drag data fields into either columns or rows, and then it'll show up in here. And let's see, if I move my little camera box, clicking on the Show Me tab brings up all these different types of graphs that Tableau can do. So once I start putting data in the field, it'll start to highlight different graphs that Tableau recommends that I use based on the types of fields I have introduced. So like here, my cursor's on pie charts. It says try one or more dimensions and one or two measures. And it automatically categorizes these top ones as dimensions and these bottom ones as measures. You can see these are numbers, and these are things that they assume would be on the x-axis. And then, the numbers are things they assume to be on the y-axis. So the amount of hours versus, say, the date or something. But then it also has geographical maps, which doesn't apply here, but could apply to another data set. Or area graphs, line graphs. We'll go over all of this later. So now we get to start putting data into the view. So to start off, I'll just compare the adult initials with the driving time. But it automatically puts initials in the rows shelf, but I want to put it in the columns shelf. So I have 2 bars going up like that. So I'm going to move it up there, and you see it changes that. Right now, since there's just 1 field in there, it's just text and there's nothing else. But once I add in the driving time, we get a graph. And so you can hover your mouse over each of these bars and see that with my mom, I drove 2,695 minutes. And with my dad, I drove 700 minutes. So quite a difference, but that's now visually represented instead of just numbers. And you see it automatically creates your y-axis label, units, your x-axis label. I mean, these aren't units, but they're labels anyways. And then if I go up here, right now it's the sum of the driving time, but if I click on this little arrow or right click on that, and then go down here, I can change it to the average. And then I can see while I drove a total of much more hours with my mom, per driving session, it was actually a much closer comparison with 61 hours with my mom and 58 hours with my dad. But I'm going to change this back to the sum. Oh, actually, there's one more thing you can do. It's called count. And so I can see I had 12 driving sessions, so like 12 rows of data entry with my dad, and then 44 with my mom. So overall, I drove a lot more with my mom, as you can see highlighted through multiple different ways of representing that data. And so let's say I don't want to analyze adult initials anymore because that was just 2 things, and I want to get into something a little bit more complex. I can go over here and drag the date field into the columns, and then I see the year on the bottom. So 2019, 2020, and then there's this little null field. And what is that? Null is not a year. So I can go back to this data source button that's down at the bottom. And then I can see, oh, in the date column, there's these 2 null fields. And this is from when I had to write it down on paper before I transferred all of my stuff to an Excel spreadsheet. And I didn't feel like transferring every single line onto a spreadsheet. So I just grouped it all together. And it all happened to be with my mom. So that made it very easy. So I can go back here to the sheet. And we can get rid of that using a filter, but we'll worry about that later. That's a later lesson. Right now, I want to focus on the graph itself. And up here in the date field, in the little, oval box thing, there's this little plus button. And if I click on that, it adds a subdivision to the right. So now I see the date or the year at the top. And then at the bottom, I see it organized by quarter. And quarter isn't really helpful to me since I'm not a business analyzing, sales or profits or whatever. So I'm going to keep clicking this plus, and now I can go to month. And so I have year, quarter, and then months within that quarter. And I can even go further and click day. And now it shows me, May 17th, 18th, 20th, all the days that I've recorded something. But I think day is a little too specific for my intents right now. So I'm going to drag this from here and bring it back here. And then once I put it over here, it's going to disappear. It's kind of like deleting it from the view. And I also, as I mentioned, don't want quarters. So I'm going to move that over there too. And now I have this great graph of the total time that I drove sorted by year and then by month. And again, this null thing is annoying, but we can worry about that later. And so you can see here, May, I can hover over the dot, and it'll tell me in May of 2019, I drove 385 minutes. And then in June, I drove 680, 270, and you can see the pattern over here. I don't know what happened in December, but I drove a lot. And then over here, January is just one dot because there's nowhere to connect it to, because my birthday's in January, so I got my license in January, and I didn't need to keep tracking my hours once I got my license. So yeah, that's how subdivisions work. And then you can always, of course, go back and get the day again. And here you can break it down like, oh, I drove 200 hours on June 29th of 2019. We probably had some road trip somewhere. And I would guess that also on December 1st, we had a road trip for like Thanksgiving or something. But if I wanted to see like, if I was going to work every day or something, I could see, or school, I could see, oh, where are the patterns in that by day. And so I'll just drag that back over there. And something that's really neat about the way Tableau organizes data fields is that you see up here, these are blue and this is green. So the blue ones are the ones that are on the x-axis and the green ones are on the y-axis. And if you remember from the show me, down here, dimensions is blue and the measures is green. So I can really substitute out any of these blue ones with another blue one. So let's say I wanted to examine the driving environment. I can add that there with the other blue ones. And what's really cool about this is that it also subdivides within the year and the month if I add it on afterwards. So now I see year at the top, and then month at right underneath that, and then all the way at the bottom I see a bar graph organized by the driving environment within each of those months. So you can see lots of dry roads here in these hot summer months, and then a lot more rain here in the winter. And it's really nice that you can organize that by month because here, if I take away the dates, then it's just, oh, a lot of dry roads and some rain and all of that stuff. But adding all of this makes it more precise. And I can see the way you order it makes the graph different. So I don't really like this because, oh wait, well, this is quarter anyways, but this looks weird to me because it's first categorized by driving environment and then by everything else. But if I take this and move it over to the end, then I get the type of graph I'm going for. So sometimes it's not always going to give you what you want right away, but you just have to mess around with it, mess around with the order, and eventually you'll find what you're looking for. So for next time, I'd like you guys to do two things. First, locate the sample Excel file that I provided. It's the same one that I was using there, the driving log, and it's the same one I'll be using throughout this course just to make everything simpler and consistent. You're of course welcome to look for other data sources, or if you have one of your own that you want to experiment around with, you're more than welcome to do that. However, I would ask that you at least start with the sample one so that you can make sure that you're doing everything correctly and following along with me before you apply those skills to other data sources. And that way you can just compare what's on your screen versus what I have on my screen and make sure that they line up. Secondly, I'd like you to first watch these videos through, and if you didn't do this for this one, that's okay. But in the future, at least, watch these videos all the way through and then go back and start following along and copying what I do so that you don't get lost, because there's a lot of things you can do with Tableau and there's lots of menus and lots of just stuff and information on the screen. And so it's easy to get lost and confused. And if you click on one thing that you didn't mean to click on, then it's like, how do you undo it if you don't know how? So I think it'll just be easier if you go through it once, just watching and seeing what I do, and then go through again and you can like pause the video if you need to, or just reference it, and then actually do it with the sample file or with another file of your choosing. So that's all for today. I hope this was super helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye.